It's District Council Election Day, which happens just once every 4 years. Polls opened at 7:30 this morning and voting will continue until 10:30 tonight. The latest figures show over 1,060,000 voters have cast their ballots so far, representing a turnout rate of 33.99%. That's slightly higher than the corresponding figure during the last District Council election in 2011. Of the 18 districts across Hong Kong, Sham Shui Po has so far recorded the highest turnout rate of 36.96% and Tuen Mun the lowest at 29.49%. Interestingly, Tuen Mun is the district with the two most hotly contested seats. Reporter Owen Fong is at one of these constituencies where an incumbent district councillor, who's also a pro-democracy legislator, is trying to defend his turf from 5 competitors. So, Owen, have things been civil out there?
Hi Diane, it did get a little rowdy earlier today between the candidate supporters right across the road from where I am, and police had to go there to maintain order. Now, the election here in Lok Choi constituency in Tuen Mun is undoubtedly one of the fiercest in the city. The incumbent district councillor is Albert Ho of the Democratic Party, who's held this seat since 1999. This time he's fending off competition from 5 rivals. One of them is Beijing loyalist Junius Ho, former president of the Law Society. On the other end of the political spectrum, there's Cheng Chung Tai of localist group Civic Passion. Chen Wing-wai, Shum Lam Tim and Yun Wai Chung, meanwhile, make up the rest of the candidates here in Lok Choi. Now, that sure is a good range of options for voters here to choose from. Now, let's take a look at how voters are doing in other parts of the city. From big political questions to local community matters, there was a wide variety of issues on voters' minds as they went to the polls today.
We look for whether the candidate will take care of the welfare of this district, for example, traffic, landscape, environment, problems.
With the pro-establishment trying to dilute one country, 2 systems, it's more and more important for everybody to come out and express their individual opinion.
Some families went to cast their votes together. This woman said her family is quite open about everyone holding different stances. She said she doesn't really consider politics because district councillors should just be working for the interests of their local communities. Her daughter, meanwhile, said she looks at candidates' campaign platforms as well as their political backgrounds. She also took into consideration what the candidates think of the Occupy protests. It's the first election since last year's civil disobedience movement, and it seems many voters also took that into account.
People will have to decide whether or not it is in the interest of our district for people who sort of motivate or participate in the movement last year.
So has Occupy Central affected you today?
Of course, and I think the youth like me have to fight for ourselves, for the democracy.
There are 431 district council seats in this election, 19 more than last time 4 years ago. 68 of them were uncontested, so the sole candidates of these constituencies have already won the seats. That leaves 363 seats up for grabs among nearly 870 candidates. Excluding the registered voters in the uncontested areas, there are a total of 3.12 million eligible voters in this election, which itself is a record high. The polls will close at 10:30 tonight, and many polling stations will be turned into counting stations. We'll be bringing you live updates throughout the night, so do stay tuned with us. Now, just a reminder for those planning on heading to the polls, do double check the location of the polling station in your constituency, as some may have changed since the last election. That's all from me for now. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Owen. That was Owen Fong reporting live out in Tuen Mun. The Electoral Affairs Commission has received more than 1,700 election-related complaints so far. Most of them were about campaign advertisements, while others involved candidate activities to win votes. Meanwhile, the government has plans to improve voter registration and validation procedures. Winnie Wong with that story.
The Electoral Affairs Commission chairman was out and about inspecting polling stations today. He clarified the situation over complaints from candidates in Hua Fu North that 4 new eligible voters popped up on the roll at the last minute.
There have been error in entering the address into the system, and it has been discovered that some of the addresses entered in the final register has been incorrect.
He said relevant laws were invoked to correct the errors, and these eligible voters were finally put back in their correct constituency. Meanwhile, the government also addressed concerns over voter fraud and the validation of eligible voters after some individuals found their registration details had been changed without their consent or knowledge.
In those areas, the government is considering a list of measures to improve the situation. And shortly, this bureau will be putting out a range of proposals for the public, for the general public, to give us further comments.
Tam said he hopes to discuss these measures with lawmakers by the end of the year. He was among the city's top officials who voted this morning. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and his wife cast their ballots at Raimondi College in mid-levels, while Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam voted on the peak. They called on members of the public to carry out their civic duty and chip in to make their communities a better place to live. There are nearly 500 polling stations across Hong Kong, where chops are provided for people to stamp a tick on the ballot paper next to their preferred candidate.
Electoral officials have reminded voters not to bring cameras into their voting booths. Also, they're not allowed to use their own pens on the ballots. All voters really need to bring are themselves and an ID card. Winnow Wong, TVB News.